Where are all those who stated Black Lives Matter? If Black Lives Matters, then the thousands of people I saw on the street when Floyd was murdered should be on the street right now stating that the lives of these Black children that are dying every night matters. We can't be hypocrites.
Where are they? Maybe BLM is too busy lounging it up in their ritzy $6 million mansion in Los Angeles. Joining me now to talk about all this is Deroy, Murdock, Senior Fellow at the London Center for Policy Research, and Fox News contributor, also Marc Thiessen, Washington Post columnist, also a Fox News contributor. Good to see you, gentlemen. Great to see you.
Good to see you, Dave.
Happy holidays. Deroy, how important is Mayor Adams' split with BLM?
I think it's pretty important. I mean, he's obviously mayor of the biggest city in the country. That's huge. He's a Black man. That also makes it sort of newsworthy. But look, he has a very good point, which is BLM only gets involved if you have a Black person being killed by a white cop. If it's a Black cop and a Black person who's hurt, you don't hear about it. But if it's a white-Black situation, then they get incensed. They fill the streets. And they've got people believing that I ask folks, how many Black, unarmed Blacks do you think are killed by the cops? And people think, oh, 500 a year, 1,000 a year. Last year, 4. Grand total 4 people. You listen to BLM and it's just something approaching a genocide, and it's not. And meanwhile, you've got thousands and thousands of people who are killed by other Blacks, and you hear nothing from BLM about this. Very often, a terrible case in Chicago, 11-year-old boy fast asleep in his bed who was killed by a bullet that came in through the window. He was not gangbanging, not out, selling drugs or whatever. Fast asleep in his bed, killed by a random bullet coming in through the window, and nothing from BLM or any of these other people. Total silence.
It's shameful what they do as far as that goes. Now, Marc, of course, you also have people like Al Sharpton. I hate to credit him with anything here because he's been anti-cop for his whole life. But even he kind of paved the way for Adams to do that by disassociating himself with the defund the police people. So where does this leave the squad inside the Beltway and who are still singing the defund the police tune?
Well, it's the wrong answer. I mean, look, Eric Adams ran on a promise to install public safety, to improve public safety, and he's doing the right things in terms of public relations. He's out, patrolling the subways at 2 a.m. and he's going to crime scenes when they happen and all the rest of it. So that's all good. That's an improvement. The anti-police mentality is gone, but he hasn't gotten any results yet. In his first 100 days in office, crime has skyrocketed in New York. I mean, gun violence is up 14.5%. Here's the stats. Major crime is up 44%. Robberies are up 47%. Burglaries are up 31%. Assaults are up 19%. Only crime that's down is murder by 9%. So he's not doing the things that need to be done yet in order to stop that crime from happening. And so that's until he takes the actual steps needed to stop crime. And what stops crime, we now know, because I grew up in New York City under Rudy Giuliani when they cleaned up the city. Two things: more cops and more arrests. Yeah. When you have more cops on the streets and when you have more arrests taking place, crime goes down. And so that's what he needs to do. He needs to implement things, not just talk about it.
And Deroy, it's universal. I mean, human beings act pretty much the same anywhere in the world, and that is particularly true for the United States. If you have the broken windows theory in place where you stop the small crimes because they often lead to the big crimes, you get less crime. Yes, you put more people away, and that bothers some people, but it's better to have them in jail if they're breaking the law and violating innocent civilians than out in the streets causing havoc.
I agree with all of that, and I do want to see more cops in the streets arresting bad guys, but there's another part of the equation, which is you need prosecutors who lock them up. And as you know, we've got these George Soros-funded prosecutors. We've got George Gascon in L.A. Here we've got a man named Alvin Bragg. And their idea is, well, the criminal justice system is racist. If you've been arrested by the cops, you're a victim of racism. So let's get you back on the street out there so you can resume your criminal career, with as little interruption as possible. If I were Eric Adams, I'd be hammering the hell out of Alvin Bragg, who is one of these George Soros-funded soft-on-crime types. And Bragg types will say, oh, it's all about equity. No, it's all about keeping people from being put into caskets before their natural deaths.
Well, if you were Eric Adams, we'd have a much safer New York than we do under Eric Adams. I should mention that. But, Marc, I want to switch subjects to some of Biden's problems. Aviator Joe, as he's now being called, says that he's ready to go to Ukraine, just like Boris Johnson did. But once again, Psaki had to sort of dial it back. Let me just roll the tape of Biden and then Psaki. Go ahead.
Will you send officials to Ukraine? Will you send senior officials to Ukraine?
Well, we're making that decision now. Thank you.
Who would you send?
What was the reason? You ready to go? Yeah.
No.
Okay.
No.
So he's ready. He's just not like.
He is ready. He's ready for anything. The man likes a fast car, some aviators. He's ready to go to Ukraine. It's true. He does. We are not sending the president to Ukraine.
All right. You know, obviously, his comments, I believe Psaki before I believe Biden, that he's not going to Ukraine. But Americans are very concerned that we have a commander-in-chief who's just not strong. He's not up to the task. And that has problems whether you're talking about Afghanistan or Ukraine, and God knows what will happen with China.
Look, every time they walk something back that he says, they make Biden look incompetent and they make America look weak. It's just that simple. No one elected Jen Psaki. They elected Joe Biden, president of the United States. When the president says something, like he did when he said that Putin must go, or that it's or what he's doing is war crimes, or that it's genocide, all of which I agree with, by the way. No one elected Jen Psaki to say, no, that's not actually true. When the president of the United States speaks, that's U.S. policy. And Jen Psaki wasn't elected. Ron Klain wasn't elected. Tony Blinken wasn't elected. Joe Biden is the president. And when they do this, they confirm the perception that Americans have that the president isn't up to the job. There was a Washington Post ABC News poll a few weeks ago that showed 54% majority of Americans think Biden doesn't have the mental sharpness it takes to serve effectively as president. Well, when his staff is doing things like this, these are the people who see him behind the scenes when there's no press around, when he's just there, when they're so quick to contradict him, when they're so quick to clean up anything he says, that confirms the impression that people have that Biden is not mentally fit for the job. So they've got to stop doing this for his sake. And when he says, Putin has to go, that's U.S. policy, whether they like it or not.
All right. I remember what did Obama say? There's no limit to how much he can F it up. I mean, I won't be specific here. Deroy and Marc, thank you very much for being here. Have a wonderful holiday weekend. Thanks so much.